Hey everybody, this is Miss Burkham, and this is our practice for the week. It is representing numbers in different forms. So what that means is we are taking this, which is written in standard form right here, okay, and we are going to write it in expanded notation, expanded form, word form, and then you get to go in and you get to pick the value of any of these numbers. You get to pick one of these numbers and tell me what place is it in. So, for example, is it in the tens, the hundreds, the thousands, the 100,000s? And then also, what is the value of it? So, what is it worth? Okay, so how we will start, let's go ahead and start by labeling our different places. Okay, so what I mean by that is I'm going to zoom in here. Okay, I know that this is my ones place. This is my tens place. Right here is my hundreds place, then it's my thousands, my 10,000s, my 100,000s, and my millions. Okay, so I got that in and labeled so I can know my different place values. So if we're starting with expanded notation, this one right over here. Okay, what expanded notation is, it is looking at the value of each digit based on its place value. So for example, our first number in here is in the millions place. So I know it's in the 1 millions place. And I know that in that millions place, I have the value of 2. The digit is 2. And so that means it has a whole complete value of 2 million. So to get to that 2 million, I would have to do 1 million times 2. So now I go look at my next place, which is my 100,000s place. So I'm starting, I know it is my 100,000s place. And then I look at the digit that is there, and I see that there is a 7 in my 100,000s place, which means that digit, that 7, doesn't represent 7, but it represents 700,000. Okay, and so if we're going back over here, looking where I just wrote that, I know that to get my 100,000 to 700,000, I have to multiply it times 7. All right, now I go and I'm in my 10,000 spot. And I look in my 10,000 spot and I see that it's an 8. But that 8 doesn't represent an 8, it represents 80,000. So to get my 10,000 to 80,000, I would have to multiply it by 8. All right, now I move on to my thousand spot. And I see that I have a 4 in my thousand spot. So what I'm going to do, I know that 4 doesn't represent 4, but it actually represents 4,000. And to get my 1,000 to 4,000, it would be times 4. Now I look in my hundreds, but I have nothing in my hundreds because it is a 0. So I could represent that if I wanted to. I could do 100 times 0 because my 0 is right there, but I don't have to do that. I could have left that part out, but if I want to, I can include it. Now I'm moving on to my tens place, which has a 6 in it. So I'm in my tens place, but I know that 6 isn't a 6. It represents 60 because it's in my tens place. So to get my 10 to 60, I would do 10 times 6. And last but not least, I have the 1 digit in my ones place. So again, I know it's my 1 place, but I only need one of them. So it would be 1 times 1. So that is how we're doing expanded notation. Now we can look at expanded form. So this one has a lot in common with expanded notation. Instead of writing it all spread out like we did over here, what I can actually do is I just write what the value of this is. So I go down the line and I write what the different values of these digits are. So for example, okay, starting here, starting in my biggest spot, this million spot right here. I know that in that million spot, that digit, which is 2, doesn't represent 2, but it represents 2. It represents 2 million. Okay, so then I move on to my 100,000 spot. It has a 7, but it doesn't represent a 7. It represents 700,000. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to write 700,000, which is what represents that 7 right there. Now I keep moving to my 10,000 spot, which has an 8, but it's not just an 8. It's an 8 in my 10,000 spot. So I know that actually represents 80,000. I keep moving on. Now I go to my 1,000 spot, which has a 4. So that 1,000 spot has 4,000 in it. My hundreds, it doesn't have anything in it. It is a 0. So just like I said for expanded notation, I don't have to put that part in. So I can move on to my tens place, which has a 6 in it, but that 6 isn't a 6. It represents a 60. And then last but not least, we have this 1. But the 1, the digit 1, is in my 1 spot. So that 1 just represents a 1. All right. Now, moving on. Let's go to our word form. Now, what word form is, all you're doing is writing this, which is in standard form, in words. That's all it is. So right here, my 2 was 2 million, and that's all I have in my millions cluster, in my millions bracket. So I can just label that as 2 million. Now I move on to my next bracket, my next section, which is my thousands. So I won't be writing 700,000, 80,000, and 4,000, but I'm going to write it clumped together. So I would write it as 784,000. So I start with my 784,000, comma. Then I keep going on and I look in my next bracket. Well, in my next bracket, I see that it is only 61. There is no 100 spot, which means I don't have to include that like I did in my thousands. There is no 700 or 100 or anything. There's 0 hundreds in my units bracket. So all I have to write now is that 61. So I go here, I have 2,784,061. And that's all I do for that section. Now this last one, guys, this one you get to choose. So on this, with this one, what I want you to do is you get to pick a digit. It could be any of these digits that are present right over here. So any of them that are in this number, you can pick. But depending on which one you pick, that's going to depend on what you write down. So say I picked this 4. So I'm going to make note, the digit is a 4. The place that it's in is my thousands spot. And the place value, which means I'm looking at not just the place, not just the digit, and not just the value of that place, but the place value. So when that 4 is in that spot, in that thousand spot, what does it equal? And I know that equals 4,000. Now, you don't have to choose the one I chose. It's okay to choose any of these digits. Just make sure that depending on what you pick, you write what digit it is, what place it's at, and then what the actual place value is. Please let me know if you have any questions.